know, and it's a matter of time. We know it's a matter of time, but what we have to do is just keep the pressure, make the world aware of what he is all about, and it's just, like I said, we just have to do our bit, and hopefully, sooner rather than later, it will be the discussion post-Gaddafi era and the reconstruction of Libya.
All right. Well, let's just recap on what's been going on here. Muammar Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, has been speaking in the past couple of hours, and basically the key points from what was a long and rambling speech are that he will not stand down, and he basically threatened violence against his own people. Now, with the uprising going on in Libya, Gaddafi is rapidly losing his friends within the international community. But in South America, he still has a few supporters. Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega says he's telephoned Gaddafi to express his solidarity. Let's get more on this. Lucia Newman is in Port-au-Prince in Haiti, but has been monitoring the reaction from around South America. Lucia, what else have we heard from other leaders?
Well, actually, Daniel Ortega of Nicaragua is rather out of step with most of his colleagues around Latin America. The vast majority of countries and leaders have expressed their deep concern for the violence that's taking place, and some, even the left-wing governments, the members of the ALBA group, whom you would imagine would be very quick to come to the support of Colonel Gaddafi, going on this old maxim that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and therefore, as they usually say when there are troubles in these countries that are led by someone that is an ally of theirs but is an enemy of the United States, they usually tend to blame the United States. But this time, that is not happening. For example, this is what Fidel Castro of Cuba said in his latest reflection. He said, "We need to wait to find out exactly what the truth is, to see how much of what is being said is real or lies amid the chaos taking place in Libya," clearly falling far short of coming to the support of Colonel Gaddafi. The same thing in Venezuela, whose foreign minister, Nicolás Maduro, has been in touch with Gaddafi, but who is saying that, quote, that Venezuela hopes that the Libyan people will find a peaceful solution to its difficulties without foreign interference. But again, not saying that they support Gaddafi. So this is very, very interesting and unusual, certainly coming from these left-wing governments.
Do they have much influence, though, Lucia? I mean, what are the relations been in broader terms in the past, and will their comments be taken seriously by Gaddafi? He doesn't seem to take anyone else's comments particularly seriously.
They don't have a tremendous amount of influence. It's just political. They seem to be on the same side of the fence very often politically, particularly when it comes to being against the policies of the United States. But there is not a tremendous amount of trade or of any other sort of influence with these countries, but with Libya and Latin American nations. The only thing, may I add, that Fidel Castro said is that he was sure of one thing, and that is that he thought that the United States would not hesitate to use NATO to invade Libya right now if it could. But this is just there's a lot of political analysis going on right now, but very little real strong influence.
All right, Lucia Newman in Port-au-Prince, thank you for that, with an update of what the Latin American leaders have been saying about the events in Libya. Let's find out what the North American leaders have been saying, because we just heard Hillary Clinton speaking, not specifically about this issue, but referencing it just a few moments ago. Patty Culhane is standing by for us in Washington, D.C. Patty, what did Hillary have to say, and was it particularly significant?
Well, so far we haven't seen any really strong comments, of course, condemning the bloodshed, saying we've seen reports of hundreds killed, calling on the Libyan government to stop the bloodshed. But so far, that's about it. We're waiting to see if she'll take questions. She was doing this press availability, so we'll pop back in, I'm imagining, if she takes some questions. But it seems that the administration here has really given Secretary of State Clinton the point on this. We haven't heard from President Obama, although he did speak in public. He was talking about the economy in Ohio. He didn't bring up Libya, which was a bit of a difference because he did speak publicly about Egypt. And just pretty much from the president, all we've seen on Libya is a statement on Friday where he grouped together Bahrain, Yemen, and Libya, calling on all of those governments to show restraint. When it came to Yemen and Bahrain, the president, though, has actually spoken to those leaders. We haven't seen him take that step with Gaddafi, and we don't expect that he will.
So pretty much the same MO from Hillary Clinton as well, wasn't it? She didn't just speak about Libya. She put it in the context of the broader picture of what's happening in the Middle East with Tunisia, with Egypt, etc., which tends to suggest that they don't want to make any specific commitment or comment on the whole issue. PJ Crowley, the White House press spokesman, also earlier on simply said, well, it's up to the people of Libya to decide their future. Basically the same lines that we've been hearing from this. In the context of what appears to be a much more dangerous situation in Libya than we saw in Egypt, this would have somehow is a little confusing, isn't it?
Well, this administration has really gone out of its way to continuously say the same message, which is we can't tell people who should lead them, and that it's not the right or the place of the United States to do that. We shouldn't weigh in. But the precedent they set is with Egypt, and you saw President Barack Obama pick up the phone and speak to former President Mubarak, tell him that he shouldn't run for re-election, tell him it was time for an orderly transition. Now, officials here in Washington will tell you Egypt, Bahrain, Yemen, a very different situation for the United States than Libya. For decades, they were open adversaries. Just during the last administration, during President Bush's administration, did they start to reestablish diplomatic relations. The feeling here in Washington is that the U.S. just simply doesn't have any leverage when it comes to Libya. They don't give them a tremendous amount of aid where they can say, we'll pull the aid. They don't feel that they have the relationships on the ground. In fact, they've been saying that it's hard for them just to verify the information because the media hasn't been allowed in. They're dealing with Human Rights Watch to try and find out exactly what is happening on the ground in Libya. So those restraints, I think, are keeping this administration from really speaking out too forcefully.
We've heard this line actually before a number of times, haven't we, that the options are limited. But it's interesting to note the contrast between the reactions to Libya and to Egypt and the reaction that we had from Iran, for instance. The Obama administration was very, very quick to come out as soon as the Green Movement appeared on the streets of Tehran in the past few days. The Obama administration had absolutely no problem in backing that to the hilt and being quite forceful on it. And the suggestion that there's nothing they can do about Libya has been called into question by any number of people. The International Crisis Group, just to name one organization, has been saying, well, why not freeze his assets internationally? Why not impose a no-fly zone? Why not impose economic embargoes? Are any of these things being spoken of in Washington?
They are actually, and it's coming from a key ally in the U.S. Senate to the Obama administration. Senator John Kerry, as you know, he's the leader of the Foreign Relations Committee, very influential. Now, sometimes he speaks for the administration when they feel that they cannot. I'm being told that that is not the case now, at least that's what they're saying. But Senator Kerry came out and he said there are actions that the U.S. needs to take. So whereas you've seen the administration really take a step back, except for Iran, as you mentioned, and we've been talking about that in the past days, right after Egypt, in essence, they came out and said, well, they looked at all of these protests happening throughout the region, but they really tried to focus the country on Iran and really were able to do that within the domestic media audience. There wasn't a lot of challenge to them on what seemed to be hypocrisy there. But Senator Kerry, getting back to that, he has put out this statement, and it's a very strong statement from Senator Kerry, saying that first the message needs to be sent to these military commanders. Gaddafi, we think he's gone, but the military commanders need to know that they could face war crime charges if they continue to back Gaddafi. He's saying that the oil companies need to stop